Well, welcome to Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast. I am Stevie Mans, and you are...
Watching me. No, I am Aki Burmese.
And we're going to run down Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3, Episode 3. Tomorrow.
Sorry, that's how I say it every time.
Tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day.
Petty pace from day to day. Yeah.
I remember the first time I heard that monologue. Do you remember Oliver and Company? The Disney?
Yes, I have a vague memory of Oliver and Company. Yes, I truly do.
For some reason, that's on TV, and I think the thespian dog or cat or whomever is watching it. I think it's a bulldog. I seem to remember it being a bulldog, and he's doing his own version of this monologue.
I have a very vivid but completely disjointed memory of that. Yes, that makes sense. We all get to Shakespeare our own way.
Indeed. But anyway, that's not what we're here to dissect. Today we are here to dissect the episode. So, shall we start the show?
Let's start the show already.
Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast.
Isn't Stardate 423702.1 and we are discussing Strange New World Season 2 Episode 3 tomorrow. Now, did that double negation go on too long? Probably. Is it confusing? Sure it is. But we better run it down because things are about to get timey-wimey here.
Oh, I love a bit of timey-wimey.
Hey, don't we all?
Let's run it down.
It's time to run it down.
Can you run it down for me? Tell me what just happened. Can you run it down for me?
Well, I'd love to come to the shop, but I've got a bit of timey-wimey, don't I? Got to come down with a bit of the timey-wimey.
A bit of the timey-wimey, James
I've come
Mason.
down. Oh, it's the timey-wimey. I don't know if I shall survive the night. Okay, let's talk about it. This is a La'an episode. Hell yeah. And basically starts with a rundown of her life as being security chief, which is, she says, quote, "It is a well-known fact that people love it when you bring them bad news," because essentially she is breaking fights and she has to address a noise complaint with Spock, and she's dealing with the new chief engineer, Pelia, whose quote-unquote antiques seem to have been stolen from various eras of Earth. And she has this whole thing about Pelia stole things from the archaeology department, whatever that means. And Pelia says she used to work there, and she still maintains a bunker in Vermont in case modern, no money utopia falls apart. Then we see La'an, so that's frustrating. She goes, she's sparring with M'Benga, and she seems to be angry about something. And Dr. M'Benga noticed that she wasn't at the party for Una in Pike's beautiful open floor plan captain's quarters, and La'an is not interested in talking. The doc can't get her to open up, but he says she's going through something she seems to be carrying alone, and she doesn't want to talk about it. As she's walking down the deck some time later, a strange man in a gray suit stumbles out of a few doors, and he's been injured. Indeed, he's been shot with a gun. And he tells La'an as she rushes over that there's been an attack in the past that she must prevent. And he tells her to get to the bridge. Also gives her a weird device like a Roku remote, and then a wave of energy causes him to disappear, and a red alert sounds. And La'an, dutiful Starfleet officer that she is, goes to the bridge to discover that it's not her Enterprise she's on. The captain, the person sitting in the captain's chair, is none other than James Tiberius, to be discussed later, Kirk, and he doesn't know who the hell she is. So I broke things up because things are about to get weird. So now La'an is in a different timeline, but is she in the past? I don't know. I think she might be in a different timeline, same time, because the time assassin's effect worked, and then the time agent fell through to find her to help send her back. This thing about time wars are so stupid. You just keep fighting them. Think about all wars. Hello. The plot corner.
She goes, am I getting this right? So I think she flips universe. Not, I guess you could call it universe / timeline.
Sure,
why not?
Yeah.
Okay, so she flips timeline, you're right, to the same time.
And that's when she runs into Kirk. So same.
Yes. But it's curious that they don't worry about her running into herself in the alternate timeline.
Yeah.
But La'an isn't
where would
on
she
that.
be? Maybe
I don't know. Actually, no, she wouldn't be there, because if they had killed Khan Noonien Singh, she would not be alive in that timeline, which is why she can jump there and not have to worry about her double.
Right.
Ha-ha.
And ha-ha-ha, well said. And I was going to say, yes, that there. And also, even if she had survived somehow, Una saved her from the Gorn, and her whole sort of survival story depends on Starfleet existing. So many. And also she had that device which helps her preserve herself despite the timeline, so she could be in that timeline without having existed in the timeline. Okay, great. Everyone confused? Wonderful. I've named the segments of this episode to help keep things in check. This is called Ready Room. Basically, La'an goes in. She talks to Kirk privately. We find out that he is not in Starfleet. He's in something called the UEF, the United Earth Force. La'an tries to explain that she was sent there, she thinks, by this guy in the gray suit who gave her the device and told her to get to the bridge and helped her find help. And Kirk is, that could be true. I'm not great with temporal stuff, but you could also be crazy. And he's, let's take a look at that weird device. I don't know what it does. He tries to grab it. They fight over it. They hit the button, and they are both transported away to second section, 21st century Toronto. So they arrive in Toronto, having been fighting without any kind of preparation. They have no phaser, no tricorder, no nothing. This was foolish. This Kirk has never been to Earth in his timeline universe. Let's call it a timeline universe, because that Earth is like a bespoiled, mostly poisonous planet. It's cold. They realize where they are. They don't know what they're supposed to do. La'an has some knowledge of where they are. They go to a department store. They steal some clothes from said department store. They still have no money. Kirk sees some people playing chess in the street, and he hustles strangers for chess for money. Where did he get the seed money? I don't know, but he's able to get tons of money. And then he buys some hot dogs. La'an is impressed because she, like many of us, thinks Kirk is just a big, dumb idiot. But it turns out he's not as dumb as he seems he is purported to be. As Sam is. I don't know how best to say it. He's surprisingly intelligent. Even that's sort of why Spock sort of liked him. It was like, gosh, you seem like a big dumb animal, but you got a brain in there. Anyway, they spend the night at a hotel. Say what? There's a little, I would call it tension sexual. All right.
Really? That's what you're going to call that?
That's what I'm going to call it.
Tension sexual.
And I also had to wave my head like this when I say it. Yes, Kirk is sleeping on the couch. I guess they didn't make enough money to get a suite with 2 beds. So Kirk is sleeping on the couch. La'an in the bed. She tossing and turning. Thank you. Yeah, it's exactly. Tension sexual. And then La'an gets up with the look in her eyes as if she means to be about some business. And she stands in the threshold, and Kirk wakes up feeling that someone's eyes are on him, and she looks at him, but then she decides not to do anything. She goes away, and Kirk looks up, and she's gone. The light goes out, and nothing happens, but something could have happened. As part 3, the bridge. La'an and Kirk wake up the next day, and they're having breakfast, and La'an has been trying to assemble all the details she knows about her timeline and wants him to do the same about his, so they can figure out where the things are divergent, so they can find out what they're supposed to do. And this is when she has to convince Kirk to come over to her side of things, because he's like, well, what about my timeline and all my friends and people that I like to hang out with? And I can't go back to that if we fix things so they don't go bad. And she's like, oh, anyway, she mentioned Sam, and he goes, oh, Sam's alive. And you realize that Sam is dead in his timeline. And also there are no, you can't go to Earth and see sunsets in his timeline. So he's like, you know what? This is the garbage timeline. And honestly, if somebody came to me and we went back into the past or whenever, I'd be like, you know what? If they were like, oh, I'd be easily convinced. I'd be a pushover. Me, Aki, would be a pushover for someone to be like, this is the dark timeline and you need to fix it. Where was I? Oh, yeah. The bridge blows up. There's a bridge over, I believe, Lake Ontario. It blows up, which did happen in both timelines. And that's when La'an realizes that the gray-suited man who died on the floor in the Enterprise meant for her to get to that bridge, the literal bridge. Why are time agents talking in weird metaphors and clues and hints and riddles? Just be like, hey, get to the bridge in Montreal in 2056. There's somebody there who's trying to kill so-and-so. Whatever. He's like, I believe you can do it. I guess he can't destroy the timeline. Who cares? They get there. They see that there's some explosions and stuff. There's like some wreckage being loaded into a truck. They borrow a nearby onlooker's camera in order to get a closer look at said debris. See how I said it? Debris. And they find, debris. Right? Isn't that how you say
debris.
Who says debris?
I don't know.
I thought it was Brits who say debris.
No, we say debris.
So do we. Who says debris?
It
feels fancier to say debris. Gosh. It's debris. I've made a fool of myself. This is in keeping with recently having rewatched our
Strawberries
episode. Yeah, strawberries. Yes. Debris. Anyway, they take a closer look through this onlooker's camera and see that the debris has evidence of having been a photonic explosion, not something that humans of that era would have had their hands on. And they see the wreckage load into this truck, and they have to follow that truck. So Kirk goes and Vulcan pinches some guy and steals a fancy red car. I don't know from Cars. I did look it up, but I've already forgotten what it was. It's called like a Riot or a Banshee.
Look, quick Google. It was a Dodge Challenger.
Challenger. Yeah. A Dodge Challenger in the mid-21st century. So I should have taken a closer look at the person they neck pinched, because that person has preserved a beautiful 100-year-old car or so in order to drive it around Toronto. Just parked it on the street.
Wait, what time? God, what time are we in?
Mid-21st century.
So
mid-21st century.
That's not now.
That's like a couple years from now.
Okay.
Mid-20, 40, 50, 60.
Okay, but the car isn't that old.
The Challenger, that Dodge Challenger is from like the 80s or something, right? It had like an 80s look.
I don't know.
Again, I don't know. I don't know why I'm
surmising on cars.
The point is, I have a 1998 Toyota Camry, and I have to do everything I can in my power to keep that thing running. I don't know how somebody can have a Dodge Challenger, bright red, beautiful, run perfectly on the streets of Toronto in 2055, let's say.
Well, I just figured that the Sprinter van that they had looked like all other cars, and there was some Mercedes they all look like now cars. That was my impression.
Yeah, that was the Lays. Yes. Okay, I guess you're saying it could be in 2023. But that's not mid. That's early.
I don't know what you want from me. I'm just going from what I saw. I didn't think there was anything there that was particularly futuristic.
I want consistency. It's timey-wimey episode. Everything must be consistent. Thought out. Get out the red yarn and the cork board. These things have to be figured out. How does a red charger? How? Why? Because the person is a collector. The point is, they got a cool car and they drove around and it was fun. And Kirk had trouble starting it and then getting it to go forward, but then drove it just like Kirk would drive anything, including a starship. They chase. The other car pulls away. They try to take the scenic route to follow said car, and they are stopped by the police, pulled over, about to get a ticket, and Kirk is saying that he's got his license in his other pants, and there's a whole thing. And then they are saved by the onlooker from before, whose name, it turns out, is Sarah, who pretends to be filming the police, discriminating against Kirk as an American, driving a fancy muscle car around the place. And then the police get called away because they have bigger things to deal with, because remember, a bridge has been blown up. So I don't know why they even pulled over this red car. Part 4, Sarah. They befriend this Sarah. She is a conspiracy theorist, but she seems harmless. She believes there's an international cabal trying to steal alien tech from aliens so that they can keep the human race from advancing too quickly and keep the tech for themselves so that human advancement is slow, but they have power or whatever. She believes there's a cold fusion reactor hidden in the city somewhere. They stop at a restaurant for poutine because they're in Canada. Sarah shows up and shows them some footage from a hookah place across the street from the bridge that shows a man waiting out at the bridge before it blew up. And so they're like, oh, maybe this is the guy we're looking for. She also shows some Sarah also shows some other pictures. Sarah also shows some other pictures in her collection in her search for the truth. And one such photo jumps out at Kirk, but he doesn't say anything at the time. They part ways. La'an is like, she's not mentally well, and Kirk's, at least she has a goal. And then he reveals, hey, that one photo, that was a Romulan bird of prey. And in his timeline, it is true that the Romulans did a first strike on Earth in a few days from when they are, and they had to stop it. So they got to find this cold fusion bomb that the Romulans are going to blow up. They need an engineer. Part 5, the archaeology department. La'an's, I have an idea of someone we could find, someone who's maybe an engineer. They do some searching. They find Pelia's shop. It was a shop all along called the archaeology department. They managed to get their way across the border. They go to Vermont. They talk their way in because La'an knows Pelia's name and that she's a Lanthanite. But this Pelia, 200 years prior to when she would become chief engineer of the Enterprise, doesn't know dang thing about technology or engineering. She just collects things. She literally cannot help them. But they realize, listen, they don't need to know how to build a cold fusion reactor. They just need to know how to find it, which means finding its byproducts, of which one is tritium, which Pelia knows. Pelia, helpful, even though she's not an engineer, was used in diving watches in the 80s. And Pelia brings out such a watch. La'an and Kirk realize that, hey, if you break the glass on this, the watches are coated in the substance that would react to tritium in the atmosphere and glow, so it becomes a detector. So they just need to take that back to Toronto, which, by the way, I've been pronouncing like an American this whole time. Apparently, you're supposed to call it Toronto. I know that, and I'm sorry that I am mispronouncing the city name.
But I'm British.
What do you call it?
Toronto.
Toronto.
Toronto. Toronto.
Let's go. Let's do Toronto.
Let's go to Toronto.
Quickly. Let's go to Toronto.
Huzzah.
You two, take 2 trains to Toronto today. Is that a vocal warm? It's very stupid. Okay, part 6, detection. They're back with the watch, and they're walking the streets, and they're looking at the watch, and nothing is happening. And La'an opens up to Kirk about, hey, you don't know anything about me being a Noonien Singh and the legacy thereof, so I have trouble with people, but it's easier to talk to you, and you seem to have a particular thing, and they seem to have a thing going on. And remember that night in the hotel when something could have happened but didn't happen, and then there's a little bit of flirting, and then they kiss, kissy, kiss, kiss, kissy, kissy, kiss, kiss. Thank you. Yes, that's the sound I heard in my head. And then Kirk's, but look, the hands are glowing. And they're like, we'll get back to this later in the future timeline, whatever. They are outside of a particular building. They enter said building, and they see a man enter a private area in this large industrial sort of brutalism-esque building. He uses his hand on a bioscan and enters a room, and Kirk makes a plan. So we wait here for the next person to come, and then when they try to use the bioscan, we knock them out, and then we use their hand to get access into that room. But that's when La'an realizes where they are. The Noonien Singh Institute for Cultural Advancement. What? So she's like, we may not need to hijack somebody because we could just go use my hand. She scans her hand, and the door does indeed unlock. The light goes green, and they have access. But just at that moment, a gun is cocked behind them. Part 7. K. Sarah. I was very happy. I was very proud of that one. It was Sarah all along. It's a Romulan in disguise. She wants to enact her plan, which is to blow the thing up, the thing where Kirk was talking about. And Kirk says, if you fire that gun at us, the alarms will go off. And she thinks he's lying, and he says she can call his bluff, and he says, go ahead. And then she shoots him, and the alarms go off, but then he dies, and La'an is pretty jacked up by that. But then Sarah overwhelms her because Sarah's a Romulan, and she pushes La'an through the doors, and instead of going for the reactor, she goes for what she calls Plan B, since the reactor will be heavily guarded because of the alarms, i.e. Sarah wants to kill a young Khan Noonien Singh, who is living in locked quarters in this Noonien Singh Institute. They get to the door. Sarah wants La'an to open it. They fight. She manages to get the hand on. They open the door, but as she opens the door, she loses the gun. La'an is able to shoot Sarah dead, and Sarah, who's living out of her timeline, disappears. And that's when La'an walks into the room and meets her ancestor, Khan. And she has a tender moment with this future I don't know, warlord? Dictocrat? Is that a word? I don't know. She wipes green Romulan blood from his face and promises that she won't kill him and that he's right where he's supposed to be. Part 8. Finale. No place like home. La'an gets back, finds things are back to normal on the bridge. Only she looks out of place in her cool mid-21st century duds. She returns to her room and is then confronted by Agent Emily of the Department of Temporal Investigations, who summarily thanks La'an for her assistance, tells her give back the tech and to keep quiet, don't tell anyone, even her captain, about this. La'an's like, what? Come on, I did all that work and then you can't say it. She's like, hey, that's the job, baby. And then she takes the device, checks the timeline, and bounces. This all reminds me that chat about that. La'an alone calls over to this timeline's Kirk on the USS Farragut with a bogus question about her brother. Kirk says he has some real dirt on Sam if she buys him a drink on leave sometime. La'an's like, cool, maybe. They sign off, and La'an weeps vociferously. Here endeth the rundown of episode 3 of season 2 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Let's chat about that.
I say, darling, let's do a quick chat about that.
Let's do.
Oh, what a fun, timey-wimey episode we had.
So, yes, timey and wimey it was.
And some deep character development for La'an.
I really loved it because I do feel like they basically touched on the Noonien Singh stuff, but this was a nice time to explore it. See a young Khan. That's a complicated, thing, right?
Yeah. The chance to erase Khan, but also yourself.
You would have been protected by the TiVo remote, but
I
that's
suppose.
what the device is. At least that's what the agent told her.
Well, she couldn't have gone back to her own timeline, I guess.
Exactly. They were like, hey, you wouldn't have to be a Khan, but there'd be no Federation.
Yeah.
Because Khan helped. Khan's evil helped the Federation form.
So she could continue to exist in whatever timeline, but as herself, without her friends or her past or anything.
Yeah.
Quite a conundrum.
Yeah, also, not really a conundrum. You're kind of like, hey, listen, I change the past and I bring some people back to life. It kills the people who've lived on in the future. Like, on balance, I'm here to preserve the timeline, baby. What are you here to do? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Totes. I'm just hearing Back to the Future in my mind. I'm like hearing Huey Lewis.
Yeah. The down low. Yeah. Why do
Whoa and weep, make another man sing. Anyway.
Yeah, we'll do karaoke some other time. I don't know if I can do karaoke. I get very weirded out by karaoke. It feels so strange. I love to go support, but I can't get up there.
Why not? That is like, so funny.
Purple rain, purple. It feels so weird. It feels like you're doing stand-up comedy, but also music. It's like no band there. There's no instruments.
Yeah, but is it because you're a singer?
Probably.
You don't like it?
I don't know.
Because you can sing. It's not like you can't sing. You can sing.
But lots of singers go to do karaoke. They have a great time. I just don't have I need like a show. I can't just get up there and do a song. And the backing thing makes me feel weird and I can't do it.
Okay. Good to know.
Great. Let's not do it.
Where were we?
Chatting. So Noonien Singh. Ooh, the Kirk La'an romance. Hello.
I really enjoyed that. I kind of want to ship them in the current prime timeline.
I was surprised that I was okay with it because pretty much every show I watch, whenever people start to get together, I'm like, ugh, gross. This, and that might be a me thing, but this I really liked. I guess I don't believe most actors when they're like, oh, I'm turned on by you. Oh, I'm turned on by you. I'm like, neither of you are. You're both weird, turned on by yourselves.
So, I mean, yes, we got some character development with La'an, but how does it play into the wider story arc, or does it?
I mean, the fact that she has something she now cannot tell her captain about, said she has something she has to tell her captain about. That's like, it's like dramaturgy 101. Now she has a secret she must keep, which means the truth must come out in order for the drama to move forward. We also know Kirk's got some timey-wimey issues he's got to deal with. The last season finale of the first season was timey-wimey, and he's worried about that in 10 years he's going to blow up and turn into Play-Doh.
True, but the nature of Strange New World is actually much more episodic than serial, and I think we have a lot of episodes that tend to be much more contained. So I'm wondering if it does just become contained, or if there can be a callback to something that she can't tell anyone about. I don't know.
Yes, I don't think the next episode they're gonna do the discovery thing where she's like, I've still got this secret, and Khan is it. I brought him back secretly to keep him, like that's what Discovery would do. This is gonna be like, next episode's gonna be like fun romp. Actually, This was a pretty fun romp.
It was kind of a fun romp. Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Kirk and Lon running through Toronto, eating hot dogs.
Buying clothes.
Trying things on, making out. Going to see Pelia in Vermont. Pelia who knows nothing about engineering. Mm-hmm. Which is very good. But I do feel like this might come back up. Obviously, she's been worried about her heritage now for a little bit. For this season, she's been thinking about it a lot. And remember the speech that the lawyer gave her in episode 2, which should have alleviated things, but maybe is still on her mind. Oh, by the way, all the trauma of her childhood that has nothing to do with being a Noonien Singh is coming for the Federation now, i.e. the Gorn who eat humans. So, yeah, I feel like there's a reason we got this backstory. I don't know if it's fully connected, though.
All right, we shall see.
We shall see. And that's me being very reasonable, because I always wanted to be Lorca. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We go now directly to the Easter Egg Desk TV. What have you got for us today?
Well, hi there, Rocky. I have an entire basket of Easter eggs for you today.
Sweet.
We start.
At the beginning of the episode, we have a Denobulan cadet arguing with La'an. Now, the Denobulans, you may remember, were made famous by Dr. Phlox in the prequel series Enterprise, and this is the first time, a Denobulan has appeared in a live-action Star Trek outside of Enterprise. We have seen Denobulans, though, in Star Trek Lower Decks and Prodigy, but first time with the live action. Nerdy thing, timeline graphic, we have the T-cars, if you notice. The graphic projected by the device held by Mr. Temporal Agent tracks the flow of time. It is nearly identical to a screen from Voyager, an episode called Relativity, in which 7 of 9 was recruited by a future time-traveling version of Starfleet to stop a temporal incursion in the past. And the interface was called TCARS, which stands for Temporal Computer Access Retrieval System. Very similar. Yeah. Very similar to the famous computer interface invented by Next Generation, LCAR's Library Computer Access and Retrieval System, which is something I could never remember.
Yeah.
Yes.
LCARS.
In this timeline, Captain Kirk was born on the USS Iowa. A little reference to him being born in actual Iowa.
Yeah.
Kirk is great at chess. Now, this is quite fun because fans might be reminded of the episode Where No Man Has Gone Before, in which Kirk beats Spock at chess in the very first scene.
Yes.
This Kirk makes a reference to that scene, saying, I used to play all the time with my first officer until she got sick of losing. That old-fashioned two-dimension chess, it's basically idiot's chess. And we know that three-dimensional chess was such an iconic prop in the original series, and apparently in any universe, which is rather fun.
Yeah.
We love that. Kirk does the Vulcan nerve pinch, makes a reference to being in a Denobulan prison, rather fun. Kirk not being able to drive, very amusing. This is a reference to a piece of the action in which Kirk drives a 1930s car, puts it into reverse, and can't use the clutch correctly.
That's right.
It's a little fun bit there.
I knew that there was something there. I couldn't remember what it was, but I was like, yeah, Kirk, as soon as he got in the car, I was like, he has trouble driving old cars. I seem to remember. Don't know why.
This one I find particularly fun. Kirk's middle name. Apparently, I'm not a big TOS fan, but Kirk's middle name, Tiberius, was never actually established in the original series, but instead was first mentioned on screen in the animated series in an episode called Bem, later retroactively revealed to be the first name of Kirk's grandfather, most prominently in the 2009 reboot film, a fact that Kirk reiterates here. So, fun. Lots of canonical stuff. Love it. Coming
together.
Now, I enjoyed this bit. Soong versus Singh.
Yes.
So, in this episode, Kirk incorrectly says La'an Noonien Sung. She corrects him saying Sing. Kirk says, whatever, making it clear that Kirk hasn't heard of Khan Noonien Singh in his timeline, but it's also an inside joke about the existence of Noonien Soong, the creator of Data, whose ancestors Adam Soong and Arik Soong were both geneticists involved with the augments. And in fact, presumably, Adam Soong is directly involved with whatever is going on with Khan.
Yes.
And at the ending of Picard Season 2 in the 21st century, Adam Soong has had a file called Project Khan.
Yes.
So I think it's just the writers having a hell of a lot of fun. But I always got confused by Khan Noonien Singh and Noonien Soong. And I don't know why they did that. Why the fuck would they do that?
I have to believe it has something to do with bigotry in the Cold War. I have no idea. I just feel like in the 60s, they were probably like, what's scarier than the Red Empire and the USSR? But there's no question I constantly get Noonien Singh and Sung confused, and probably did in the rundown in this episode. But so it goes. Yeah.
Captain Spike. Haha.
Hey, okay, take it easy.
Okay.
That's all from the Easter egg desk here. It's back to you, Aki, in the studio.
Thank you very much, Stevie. Always a pleasure to hear from you. Let's move on immediately to quotable bubble.
Quotable moments. Oh, I love some quotable moments. I had a good one. I'm
what
sure
have you got?
The same one.
Hit me. I've got a few. Yeah.
I don't know if I can do her voice, but I'm going to try it. Once you have lived through every natural disaster, economic calamity, and human history without becoming a pack rat, then you can judge me. I still have a bunker in Vermont where I used to live in case this whole no money socialist utopia thing turns out to be a fad.
You're so close. You keep working on that. I think you'll have it nailed.
It's too British.
Like it's going in and out. Yeah. Well, sometimes it was too British, but then it totally nailed.
My wife was watching it with me, and she was like, "It sounds like she's doing Professor Trelawney, but Jewish / like there's something she's channeling Harry Potter in some way."
Yeah, it's Carol Kane, who's just sounds like an MTA train. She's so New York, trying to do some sort of vaguely maybe Eastern European, but educated in England accent. I can't tell what's going on, and I don't care.
It's fun.
It's great.
It's good.
Yes, I also liked. I thought I wrote this down, but later on she says, I haven't studied mathematics since, what did she say? Archimedes? Not Archimedes.
Oh, Pythagoras.
She said, since Pythagoras made that crap up. Which I thought was very funny. What?
I love how some of these more fringe characters have some of the best lines.
Yes.
Jet.
Yes, exactly.
Jet's jabs. I had, to Kirk, never seen a revolving door before. Kirk goes, I'm from space.
Yeah.
Which I loved because it was a nod to a vintage Kirk line. I'm from Iowa. I only work in space.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. Beautiful. That was great. I loved also from that sort of sequence, I am your superior officer. I am ordering you to have a hot dog. Mm-hmm. When La'an doesn't want a hot dog. Oh, the very first thing Kirk says when La'an bursts into the bridge, he spins around and says, ma'am, not to be impolite, but who are you and what the hell are you doing on my ship?
Indeed. And apparently, and that's very much a callback to his character where he would say ma'am quite a lot.
Yes. It was the 60s, baby. All right. And the exchange when they're trying to figure out which timeline they want to preserve, and Kirk says, and I suppose you come from some kind of utopia. And La'an says, my Earth still has sunsets. I thought that was quite good.
So that's a winning line, isn't it?
You know what? Argument
What do you got?
I was going to come up with a retort, but then the bridge blew up. So let's go with your plan. That's about it. There's a lot of great quotes in this episode, but I think that most of them belong to Pelia. So can't wait to get into more Pelia stuff.
Mm-hmm. All right.
I thought it was so beautiful how they they beautifully wove in the cold open into the plot of the show. It was great. That she's like, oh, all her stuff in the archaeology department. And she mentions Vermont. And then later on, that's exactly what they need. Anyway, I love a timey-wimey episode that has something like that for the character. Felt very...
A little clue.
A little Back to the Future.
It was 1955 and the clock, the lightning struck the clock tower.
Yeah. And you're like, why do I care about this stuff? Because you're going to need to do it, Marty. Marty! Shall we? Let's move on to next time because I'm clearly falling back asleep.
Next time on Set Phasers.
next time on Set Phasers, we will be discussing season 2, episode 4, the title of which I've been told by Google is Among the Lotus Eaters.
Sounds creepy.
It feels like a very TOS style title. I wonder what's going to happen.
TOS was very much, who is that? Ray Bradbury. TOS gave me a lot of Ray Bradbury vibes.
Yes, that was the sci-fi vibe. Anyway, that's what we'll be talking about next week. If you enjoyed the program, hey, you can listen to more Set Phasers if you just go to wherever you get your podcast from, because we have podcasts for all the back episodes of the new era of Trek. We've discussed them all, and we'd love for you to hear them. Oh, and share them with your friends, and also, hey, leave a review if you feel like it.
Yes, that was what I was going to say.
Sorry.
That's quite all right. If you've enjoyed this, share it with a friend. If you want to be part of our crew, join us on Patreon. We have watch parties and all kinds of things, and that's at patreon.com/setphasers.
Yes, Stevie, you must go back in time and fix a wrong. Aki stepped on your outro stuff. Go knock his coffee over before he says anything stupid.
Yes, I will. Thanks, Doc. And
Stevie!
Sorry. Stevie. Yeah, thanks, Doc. That's really heavy.
Yeah.
That's great, Scott. Cool.
God, you don't say.
I don't say great, Scott. Oh man, this is really heavy. Thanks, Doc. Let's go back to 1955 and get some 921 kilowatts.
Bravo.
That wasn't great, was it?
Listeners, I know this is the outro, but you got to know, Stevie's not reading from like a pamphlet of Back to the Future. That was all pulled.
Oh, no.
That was all from the Aether.
Yeah. I'll take a tab. Oh, he sits down. He's gonna have a tab. Because I was like, "What the fuck is a tab?"
Yeah.
Anyway, he's gonna order something, kid, before you can have a tab. I get a Coke. You want a what? Oh shit! I'll have a coffee.
Wow, you really? My God.
Oh, I know it.
Okay.
Back to front, inside out. Johnny be good. Oh yeah. Anyway, I'm Stevie Manns, a Back to the Future nerd, and thanks for listening.
I'm Perceive, and I'm on a mission to protect something beautiful, the future of humanity. And this has been Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast.
Computer. End program.